Okay, so far we've looked at using Live Trace for tracing line artwork, but this feature can also be used on just about any visual assets that you can bring into Illustrator, including photos. So let's just take a quick look at how we would go about using Live Trace on a photograph. So we'll go and create a new document. So we'll go to our File menu and select New. Again, we're just going to select a web document, and we'll call this Live Trace Photograph, and we'll keep the default options as they are. Click OK, and that creates a new document for us. We're going to repeat the same steps that we did earlier by clicking on File, Place. We'll browse to the desktop, and in our Project Files folder, we'll actually go to the Lesson 2 folder and select the skate_jump JPEG file. And we're going to place that. And again, we're going to use the same thing that we did before, which is click on the Live Trace button in the control panel. Now you'll notice that Illustrator is actually given us a bit of a warning. It tells me that this is a relatively large image, so it may take a while to actually trace this object. For the time being, I'm going to ignore this and just click on OK. Okay, so it goes ahead and traces the object. It actually didn't take that long. The next thing we want to do is actually make some changes to this. Obviously, this is not the way that we want this object to appear. So we'll go ahead and change the preset to something like a 6-color trace. Okay, so actually that still didn't quite get me the result that I was looking for. So I'm going to go to my tracing options. The first thing that I'm going to want to do is reduce the sampling value. So we'll reduce it down to 100. And essentially what this is going to do is downsample the high resolution image before it applies the tracing. So this will speed up the entire process for us. The next thing I want to do is actually select the preview button again, so we can see exactly how the changes are reflected back in the original image. And there you can see that now that we have the preview turned on, it actually is a fairly quick process. Of course, when you do the resampling, you do lose a little bit of the quality, but in this case, it's a good trade-off for us. So you'll notice that by selecting color as a mode versus black and white, which is what we had selected earlier, we have some additional options available to us. And we've actually lost the ability to set a threshold value. Instead, what we can do is we can select the palette, and we can select the number of colors that we want to have in our image. In terms of the palette, the default option is automatic, and we don't have any additional options available to us here. But what we could do is we could open up a color library, and as long as it was open, it would show up here, and we could limit the number of colors or limit the colors that are being used to that library. But in this case, we're actually just going to keep the default value of automatic. We're also going to increase the blur value for this particular image. You'll notice that I have a very high path count as well as a high anchor count. So in order to reduce that, I'm actually just going to turn up the blur to 1 pixel. And you can see that actually had a pretty significant impact on the number of paths and anchors that I have. Also, what I want to do is change the path fittings just a little bit. And we want a looser path. And hopefully that will reduce the number of anchors. And what we want to do is actually change the minimum area again, just so less of the original photograph is traced. So we're going to change it to 150 pixels. Okay, so that looks about right. We'll leave the corner angle where it is, and we've managed to work our image down to 92 paths and about 3,000 anchors. So we'll go ahead and just click on the trace button to accept these changes and apply them to our image. So you can see that we've taken a high resolution photo and we've been able to turn it into a piece of stylized vector art fairly easily. Now, we can also apply this with much simpler photographs. So let's just go through this process once again, and we'll do this a little bit quicker. So we'll go ahead and go to our File menu, and we'll create a new document. We'll click OK. and we'll go again to our file menu and place. This time we're going to go to our desktop, go to our project files, go to lesson 2 folder, and select scuba goggles. We'll click on place, and the image is placed onto our canvas. And you'll notice that this is actually a very straightforward image. So again, when we go to our live trace button, you can see that we get this stylized black and white vector artwork. And we can change this to something like the 6-color preset that we had earlier. And we actually have a pretty usable piece of vector art available to us almost immediately. So now we've seen a couple of examples of using photos and live trace, and I'm sure you'll agree that this is a very, very powerful feature that's available to you to take any bitmap object that you have and convert it to a vector format, so it's much more versatile. You can use it on the web, and you can also use it in print.